Good afternoon and or good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the No Respek Podcast. My name is Mackie, and joined alongside me is Justin and Alex. And if you are new, welcome aboard. How are you, boys? Let's start off with you, Justin.
I'm good. I got my little IPA over here, ready to go, ready to snap open. So, ready to talk hockey.
Ooh.
Wow, that was clean as shit. Do we have a White Claw to carry it over here, Alex?
No, I'm sorry to disappoint, but I've got nothing with me, not even water. I work early in the morning, so I had to keep it PG tonight. But yeah, pretty good week for the Habs. Disappointing end to it, but looking forward to get going.
Yeah, that is correct. But people that won't disappoint you are a shout out. So let me start off with Monsieur David Desmarais, Joey Russo, Steph C for the great comment on YouTube. Thank you very much. Carl Prochowski as well, Dom Romano, Lucas Alexander, Matt Montreal, 1234, Ontem Matsir, and Matthias or Matthias, I'm not sure, but it's Lofo Sports on Twitter. So that was for a shout out for Alex's Spanish last episode. Guys, if you missed it, we did speak French last episode. I think it turned out relatively shittily, but I think it was good overall. So no French this week. Maybe we'll throw in a couple of tongue twisters in French for no reason. But episode 14, close but no cigar. So as Alex mentioned, this week was a near perfect week for the Montreal Canadiens, playing against Edmonton and then back-to-back, I want to say, against Ottawa. So 4-0 win against Edmonton, 4-1 win against Ottawa, things looking on the up and up, and then a 6-3 loss in regulation against Ottawa. So let's start from the top. I mean, we can maybe cover the week as a whole. I know that there's a couple of individual performances at the beginning that were pretty good. So, Justin, starting with you, what do you think about this week for the Habs?
Well, like you said, I think it was the first two games were really as perfect as they come. Shutting down McDavid and Draisaitl. Phil Deneau, first of all, I want to talk about his game. Just kind of shadowing McDavid all night. Obviously getting him frustrated. Kotkaniemi too. Obviously, McDavid had a little elbow there on Kotkaniemi. So he was obviously frustrated. But yeah, I think McDavid had like maybe one shot or zero shots even. Well, I think he had zero shots the whole game.
He had a goal that was taken away from him too, so let's not forget. So that was adding to the frustration of that game, which was the offside call. So he was extra pissed, and it showed with his elbow against Kotkaniemi, but we can get into that later. But yeah.
Yeah, and then, I mean, same for the Ottawa game. I thought it was pretty textbook for the Habs. Didn't really give them much space and were tight defensively. And then the third game against Ottawa came around, and we just had some defensive lapses. I didn't think we played too badly offensively, really. Like, Carey Price maybe let in a couple softies. But yeah, it seemed like we kind of just fell apart defensively in that game, and that's all she wrote for the week.
Correct. I'll let you go continue. I don't know if there's anything to add on that assessment for you, Alex.
Yeah, I think kind of just to add on to what Justin said, and he mostly touched on the defense, how for me, it was a clear difference between the first two games and the most recent Ottawa game last night. And we finally got a shutout from Price, and Allen almost had it Thursday night against Ottawa. And to be honest, Price and Allen played well those two games, but I don't really think they had to do anything outstanding. And that was thanks to the team's defense as a whole. They just really shut down the other team. I know Ottawa doesn't have the most offensive talent, but like they showed last night, if you give them chances, they can score. So yeah, really drastic difference in the team defense overall at the start of the week as opposed to last night. It happens. People have rough games. I know people were bashing Petrie, and kind of hard not to. Was he -4, -5?
Something along those lines, yeah.
A few of those goals, he was kind of let out to dry by either the centerman or his D partner on the play. So I think it was just an overall not great defensive performance. But yeah, it happens. I'm sure they'll bounce back. And like the title of our episode, almost a perfect week, but still room for improvement.
Yeah.
Just wanted to say about Carey Price's shutout. He only had to make 17 saves. So
yeah,
speaks to how well the Habs played as a whole in front of him, and gave him an easy shutout there, and didn't let up at the last minute like we've seen countless times, and make him lose the shutout.
Yeah, it's weird. I wanted to get into it with you guys in terms of, I know that the Habs have had more a darker period during the season, of course, with the fact that, they just couldn't string together wins. Obviously, Claude Julien got fired and all of that stuff. But there's this remaining kind of situation where the Habs can't string together more than 2 wins in a row. I don't know what the exact stat is, but it's pretty significant when you take a look at the fact that we can't get on that win streak, and we're kind of lucky that we had that win streak at the top of the season. Of course, we know that top of the season context compared to mid-season context is a completely different story. I just want to get your thoughts on potentially why this is happening for the Habs, because when you look at the 2 games, we had a 3-game sample size, the first 2 games, which were as good as it gets, of course. And now, yes, there's bounce back performances from groups, but what was really apparent for me, and this was, I think everybody kind of noticed, is that the Habs didn't lose to the Senators more than they lost to themselves. Just like those lapses that keep coming back for a team that, again, just for like an analysis perspective, is just like, I don't want to shit on them, but this is a team that has to be better at closing down these types of games and not doing these types of errors so consistently. And I'm curious to know why this is happening to this group. So, Alex, if you can maybe start off by answering that question.
I think I don't know. To me, it's kind of an impossible question to answer, just because if we knew the answer, this wouldn't be happening. I bet the coaches and the staff in Montreal are trying to figure this out, why this is happening. Ottawa coming second game in 3 nights, obviously they're going to come out harder. I don't want to blame Carey Price. The defense was pretty terrible, but there are probably a couple he could have saved. So if we get a big save from him, he did have some big saves in the game, but if he had stopped 1 or 2 of those goals, then maybe it's a different story. Some of the defensive plays were just terrible. That Petrie giveaway on the 4th or 5th was pretty awful. I don't really know how to diagnose it. Realistically, I feel like it's worse to watch a team win 2 and lose 1 when you know they're a good team who should be closer to the top of the division. But if you go a whole season winning 2 and losing 1, you're in the top 5 in the standings. Like, that's a very good win percentage. If they keep going 2-1 every week, I know we'll complain about losses to Ottawa or some weaker teams, but it's not bad. It's hard to string together wins in this league. It's mostly teams like Tampa and Colorado who do it. And again, I can't pinpoint a reason for it. I think it's just players will have bad nights. Some Ottawa players get hot. I think Artem Anisimov, I hadn't heard about him for 5 years, and he had a 3-point night. So it's bound to happen, and players get hot sometimes while others go cold. And that's what it is.
Justin?
Yeah, for me, I mean, it all comes down to inconsistency. And with a team kind of built on depth, you can't necessarily rely on one line to produce all the time. So you're going to have times where you have one line that's going to be hot, like when we saw with Anderson, Suzuki, Drouin at the beginning of the season, or other lines. And now we're seeing more of Tatar, Deneau, and Gallagher being hot. But with that comes, like, you'll have periods of time where you can't necessarily rely on one guy to always put up points and stuff. So if all your lines are kind of running dry, then it's not going to work out. And we saw that a bit earlier in the season we had a bit of struggle in scoring. Now that's not as much of the problem. I guess it's more defense, and I'd put it right now on kind of inconsistency we're seeing in defense, and the guys who were really the consistent players that showed up every night and were solid defensively, like Shea Weber. I don't want to put so much blame on Jeff Petrie, because I think this one game was kind of the outlier. He hasn't really been I think he's been pretty consistent during the whole season. But yeah, just really, like, I think some of the defensive woes really are on Shea Weber's shoulders, because he was really that guy, that pillar that we could always rely on. And it seems like he's struggling to find his game this season. And I don't really have an explanation as to why. It's just maybe he's getting older. Maybe there's something about, there's some injury that he's dealing with, something like that. But yeah, for me, like he had a brutal kind of positional play where he kind of had to have Dadonov on that deflection goal, and he just kind of left to go to the point for whatever reason. And that was kind of something that everyone was questioning about on Twitter. But yeah, just to go back to that, I think it's all about inconsistency, and right now it's defense. It's been scoring in the past, but that's something that's going to happen with a team that's built on depth and doesn't necessarily have that kind of one star player, that one star forward or something.
Gotcha. Well, for me, the thing is that I if I were to diagnose this on my side, it probably comes down to the fact that we're still a young team. There's a couple of moments that for me, we've seen it offensively with like the Nick Suzuki performances and stuff like that in the past. Now, what I would want is just like our solidified guys like the Shea Webers and stuff like that to stay consistent. That's the one difference that I see here in the Montreal Canadiens, is that some of those guys, and even Jeff Petrie, this wasn't a great game for him, but coming back to our defensive woes, you spoke about Shea Weber. I just see it also in the young centers sometimes, in like the coverage and the Kulaks, and sometimes those guys that are maybe punching above their weight in terms of performance, if that makes sense. The Kulaks that have those inconsistencies from time to time. So I would pinpoint it to that, is that we've had the ability to kind of extract a lot of value from players that otherwise some people would have written off. And then sometimes they come back to maybe the players that they were beforehand, and maybe they weren't necessarily the exact, I don't know how to, I'm saying a lot of things here. I'm trying to vocalize it the proper way, but I think that's what happens when you're trying to get the best out of players that might be playing above their, I want to say, pay grade or talent level. We see the diminished kind of result of the Armias of the world that, they had that brilliant season last season, or the Brett Kulaks during the playoff push. So maybe that's the reason that we see some of those elements. And that comes back to what you're saying, Justin, is that we don't have that superstar kind of always going to be there pieces that you see in certain other teams. And maybe one of the reasons why we see those inconsistencies in the Montreal Canadiens. But I could be wrong in that. I find it curious that it seems to be the case, especially against Ottawa this week.
Yeah, just one thing about the defense there, like you're saying, like players that are kind of playing above their weight or their pay grade. I thought Victor Mete and Alex Romanov had very solid performance against Ottawa there, and those guys, like, you're not really expecting them to play that well, but they did play very well. And then you're seeing the more experienced guys like Jeff Petrie, like Shea Weber, kind of come up with these mistakes and these defensive woes that cost us basically the game. So yeah, it's kind of weird. Like it's a weird kind of thing, because we're seeing the players that should be those consistent guys like Shea Weber not really being there. And then we are having players that step up and don't step up at different parts in the season. But yeah, so it's hard to diagnose for sure. But I'm sure the coaching staff is definitely as
they're on the case.
Exactly, they're on the case, but I'm sure they're asking the same questions as us, because it's like it feels like they should be there. But
here's the thing, though, it's never gonna reach that point. Like an NHL team is never gonna be that consistent. Tampa just lost to Detroit 5-1 today, right? And they have all the pieces. They have the experience. They have the young guys stepping up. It just happens in hockey. And if they can keep it going 2-1, I know it sucks we lost to Ottawa, but that's pretty consistent to me. Like that's their win percentage now is good. And to me, a consistent hockey team a consistently good hockey team is one that can reach those .600, 620 win percentage, right? Like there's way too much parity in the league. Ottawa has some good young players who can score, and even guys like Dadonov and Anisimov. Like Dadonov was a big free agent signing. He's going to win some games single-handedly. It's going to happen. Some of Montreal's players are going to go cold. It's going to happen. Even when Kotkaniemi and Suzuki develop, they're going to have shit games. Like McDavid against Montreal, who is the best player in the league. He went pointless, didn't have much of an impact, probably had a negative impact on his team. So, I mean, I'm sure they're trying to diagnose these issues, but I don't know if there's really anything to diagnose. It's just that's what happens in sports. You can try to get as close to consistency and perfection as possible, but you're never going to get there.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you that they're like the at the end of the day, it's all a question of the winning percentage and like how many points you get. I totally agree with that. However, what I will counter with that argument is the fact that if you look at a Tampa Bay 2 years removed, now removing the condensed schedule and all of that, they lost what, 7-9 games that season there where they were completely on fire. Obviously, it didn't translate to the playoffs, but you know, it'd be nice to see that the Habs can take advantage of the schedule at the moments that are like now where you're playing against Ottawa. Now, I know that Tampa Bay just lost against Detroit. So there are games that happen, but you do want to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you. The Montreal Canadiens, luckily enough, did that at the beginning of the season where they went on that 10-0 run. And they look like a top dog of the league. And I still think that this team is capable of it. That's the part of this week that's just a little bit annoying, is that we were close to doing it and we end up shooting ourselves in the foot to not be able to do it. That's the part that's a little bit of a worry, like a flag that I would raise if I'm looking at this Montreal Canadiens as objectively as I possibly can. So
I'd say like the difference in like the two first games of the week, we were talking about how consistent they were defensively and how tight it was. And then it kind of it felt like it fell apart like, from one game to another. So that's the only concerning thing to me. That kind of inconsistency, for sure, you're going to have nights where players are off, they can't score, or they're going to make defensive mistakes. But the fact that we can be like so tight and then so loose the next game after, it's just, I don't like to see that necessarily.
I'm sorry to keep going on this point, but I think that's perfectly fair argument. But I think we have to consider that the other teams have the same thing as well, right? So we played so tight Thursday against Ottawa, but maybe their offense was just shit that night. And yesterday they came out to play. A guy like Dadonov said, okay, I'm going to step up here and do something, right? Like other teams' performances fluctuate as well. I know I sometimes have trouble looking at that as a Habs fan, and I won't discredit how well Montreal played defensively, but Ottawa came out to play offensively last night, and maybe that played into why we were struggling more defensively. The pressure in the offensive zone was higher, physicality was there, and maybe the defense struggled with that.
Justin, I'll let you go first.
No, go ahead.
Because I have one last rebuttal here. I would agree with you, but when we look at the way the game was played, it wasn't Ottawa that was forcing the hand of the Montreal Canadiens, where it was just mistakes for the Montreal Canadiens that, yes, the Ottawa Senators capitalized on. So that's where if we had lost the game in a different way, if we had played a really good, solid game and we lost it, that's one thing. But when I look at this game, that's not the story that I saw. I saw a team that had some great lapses last night, and that's what led to the loss. So that's the part that bothers me in that, because granted, Ottawa can have a hot night and just absolutely demolish the Montreal Canadiens. They outperform them. That was not the case for me yesterday.
No, but their pressure was higher, and defense makes mistake when they're under more pressure, right? Like, yeah. I fully agree with what you're saying too, but I think Ottawa did come out to play harder. The physicality and stuff makes defense kind of more stressed trying to clear the puck, and my camera looks great right now, kind of helping me hit home this argument here. But Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you guys are saying. There were bad mistakes by Montreal, but I think Ottawa's performance
It was
helped those
better. Yeah,
mistakes
you're
happen.
right. You're right. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Justin.
Just one last thing I'll say is that I'm kind of glad that we lost this against Ottawa, because obviously Ottawa is not making the playoffs. We're not giving them 2 points to kind of continue in the race. I know it's not looking too good for the teams out of the playoffs right now, because Montreal has a lot of games in hand. They're ahead in the standings. But yeah, if we had lost to like Edmonton this week and then 1-2 against Ottawa, it would have been worse, right? Like, so at least we're giving this away. Boys are going to come back strong the next game. They're going to want to have something to prove against, I believe it's Edmonton, our next game on Monday. And it's
Correct.
Also next week is against 4 playoff teams. Got Edmonton, Toronto, and twice against Winnipeg. So I'd rather have this kind of loss now and play better next week than have it against a playoff team and like show that kind of struggle against a playoff team.
Yeah. I mean, I would have taken the win. I'm not going to lie. Like, I would rather the win.
Okay, but would you have liked to have this loss against Edmonton or Ottawa? I'd rather Ottawa.
Okay. Yeah. I get it. Okay. I understand. But the way you were saying it was
it's
like
a silver lining kind of thing.
It was way too positive for me. But yeah, no, 100%. I want to, but before we get into that, it's probably going to be a shorter episode, ladies and gentlemen, because, I mean, you know, we spoke a little bit about everything that had to do with the acquisition of Eric Stahl. We're actually going to talk about that in terms of who should Eric Stahl replace. That's a little curveball that I'm throwing in there, guys, because I didn't write it as a question. So, but I just wanted to mention that Jake Evans, to segue into that topic, had himself a hell of a week, kind of just revitalized. I listened to his press conference after his performance. I believe against Edmonton that was the game that he was like on fire, and really kind of showcasing that he can still be an offensive threat even on the fourth line, and he kind of slowed down on that side of things more recently. But so that being said, with Jake Evans, we have Eric Stahl coming in, a potential Cole Caulfield. Let's start off with Eric Stahl. That should be slated in on Monday. So that's tomorrow against Edmonton. So who do you think Eric Stahl fits in with, and who's coming out of this lineup?
I think it has to be Jake Evans, because if you're going to play Eric Stahl at center, then Jake Evans is going to have to be the odd man out. You have Nick Suzuki, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Phil Deneau as your top 3 centers. I don't think you're going to take any of those out, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know about you guys, but that's like, I know you're saying Jake Evans is playing great, but he does have he had 2 assists this week. It's great, but we still want to get Eric Stahl playing some games in Montreal. Like, we want him to make a name for himself, at least in Montreal, or at least get some mileage in the team, get some chemistry with his line mates. So we can't just let him sit on the bench and not play. And I don't think you can take Deneau, Kotkaniemi, or Suzuki out of the lineup.
Nobody said that, Justin.
No, I think no
one's mentioning that.
Yeah, no. I think it'd be a winger that'd drop out. So
exactly.
Well, then just disregard what I just said.
Here's my take. I think it's gonna be Jake Evans who sits, but I would like it to be either Lehkonen or Byron.
You really think that they're gonna take out Evans? Like realistic? I don't think so.
I don't know. I think it's gonna be Evans who sits, just because of like how they can sell that to the media. I think it kind of looks bad if you sit a guy I don't know. Byron's been scratched, actually, so I could see him being sat. But these guys who are higher paid guys, I don't know. It's a tough one. I'd like to see one of Byron or Lehkonen moved at the deadline somehow, if they can swing something just to clear a bit of space and slot in a guy like Stahl and keep Jake Evans developing. I think this guy could be a huge piece in the bottom 6 for like the long term. It's crazy at his age how solid he is defensively. Like, he has everything that you can't teach. He's very good at the stuff that you can't teach and that is harder to coach. Maybe I'd be surprised to see him develop more, or at least significantly more offensively. But I think he's just such a stable guy that solves a long-term problem that Montreal's had with a slow and pretty useless bottom six, I guess I'd say, until the past couple of years. So yeah, I think it's going to be Jake Evans, but I'd like to see it be either Byron or Lehkonen.
Yeah, I totally agree with that assessment, and I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, because after Jake Evans had that week, right, had a really solid week, and I would say that he outperformed. Even though Lehkonen had a great week, and so did Paul Byron in terms of their play and finishing off some of the plays that I feel Evans was the catalyst for. That's the main difference, is that I really felt like Jake Evans turned it on. And if I'm going to reward someone, it's going to be the young guy that, as you said, Alex, could be the long-term solution in the bottom six for this team, and put in Stahl right next to him. How great is that? If Jake Evans fucks up the face-off, you got Eric Stahl that's coming in right after that, which is beautiful. So Perry's not coming out of the lineup. He's been playing really good for a guy that I wasn't expecting to be as consistently a part of this lineup. I think that's more of a testament to him and his performance rather than the rest of the team, to be fairly honest. Like, I don't think anybody was expecting Corey Perry to be this good and being this effective in his role. So kudos to him. So I'd like to see that happen and see what this kind of combination of an Eric Stahl, Jake Evans, because as a centerman, we all know that it's very easy to move to the wing. It's difficult for a winger to come to the center and have all of these responsibilities given to you. But as a centerman, I think the transition is going to be relatively easy. So to be seen what Dom Ducharme decides. So I don't know what the folks at home think.
Would you, okay, this is like, yeah, would you put Corey Perry and Eric Stahl on a line together?
I think we had a little bit of this conversation last week, but I think it'd be too slow. I think it would be too slow. The power play, I like it.
Yeah. Like, I'm okay, well, I know you're saying Corey Perry's been playing great, and I do agree he's been playing great. I still kind of think that he's not 100% suited to our team's kind of mantra 5-on-5 of being like a fast team, like fast on the transition. He's great on the power play. I totally agree. But I'm kind of worried a bit about having like Eric Stahl on a line being kind of slow and Corey Perry on a line being kind of slow for that kind of 5-on-5 play that we're known for. So that would be my only concern about having both of them in the lineup. But I do agree with you that there's no real excuse for taking Corey Perry out of the lineup at this point. We're just gonna have to see what happens with Eric Stahl in the lineup. I'm excited to see him play, but yeah, I agree with you guys. It's gonna be someone on the fourth line, and we'll see what happens.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alex. No, please,
go
Alex.
ahead. No, go ahead.
No, please.
Okay,
please.
the one positive I'll say is that no matter what, no matter who gets scratched, all this can do is be a positive for the team, because the competition level internally is going to increase. And so if someone gets scratched, next game they're coming out hard. You know that for sure. So whoever they decide to sit to bring Eric Stahl in, you know that person's going to come back hungry and play hard their next game.
I agree with that. I was just going to touch on what you were saying about Corey Perry and not necessarily suiting the 5-on-5 game. I think that the one thing that we've discussed that being an issue with the Montreal Canadiens is sustained cycle in the offensive zone. And I think Corey Perry is really good at that in a 5-on-5 situation. Going up in the transition game, I think we have enough lines and players that are able to do that, even on the back end, I would suggest. That I don't think it's Corey Perry's obligation to be that guy. And it's not that problematic if we have two guys in the lineup that are doing that, in my opinion. So for that reason, the sustained pressure, I think, is going to come from a guy that's big and strong like an Eric Stahl, just like Corey Perry, and having the IQ, the hands, and all of that good stuff in those depth positions that I think is going to be kind of interesting to see how it plays out. I could be wrong, but I just feel that that's the one thing that the team has needed to address. they've gotten better at it, and I see it being more of a thing that they're doing better since Ducharme has come in, and like seeing actual kind of, all right, now we're in the zone. We didn't use our speed necessarily to do something effective as an offensive opportunity, but now we're in the zone. Let's figure it out. Let's cycle it and get a good shot. So that's what I expect from Eric Stahl entering as well. So we shall see Monday. That is tomorrow.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I was just going to ask if you had mentioned that he's actually confirmed to be starting on Monday.
I think
Obviously
I did.
You have, yeah.
I think so, yes. So the last thing that I wanted to maybe talk about with you guys before we get into the trade market, would you rather, and next week for the Montreal Canadiens, is this whole McDavid situation with the elbow. Because we spoke about it a little bit, that the guy was frustrated. The guy is known to be just an electric player, but not against the Montreal Canadiens. I think like every game that he's played against the Montreal Canadiens, he's been limited to like maybe a couple of points over the whole span.
He has no points.
0 points against the Montreal Canadiens?
McDavid and Draisaitl have together 1 point against the Habs this season.
If Philippe Danault doesn't put that in his contract negotiations, I don't know what else is going up. But yeah, so talking about this elbow, how big of a deal was it that he only got fined? Do you think that this was a suspendable play? Now, I know we are Montreal Canadiens fans, but let's try to be as objective as we can on this. Let's start off with the most pessimistic Habs fan I know. Alex, go ahead.
No, I think the fine is fair. I wouldn't call it suspendable. I think it was an elbow, but it was mostly chest. Kind of caught the head a bit. I don't know, man. You can't suspend that. It's Connor McDavid. Fuck. That's it.
Justin,
That's my
how
take.
about you? Okay,
Yeah,
Justin,
I mean, for me, I kind of agree. Like, it's not really so egregious that it would be a suspendable play. I think the 2-minute penalty was enough, and the fine, obviously, which is like 0.00001 of his salary, $5,000 is kind of ridiculous. Fuck. Yeah,
it's like the cost of his basketballs in the basketball room. Did you see his place? Looks pretty urban.
Wow, $5,000. He won't be able to fill the Keurig this month.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
There's
I
no
just
way
think
he has a Keurig, man. He's got like a Nespresso Ventitissimo or something.
Yeah,
no
there you go, Ventitissimo.
He has his own personal barista. Fuck.
Yeah, 100%.
No, but yeah, I think the hit was just, he kind of hit and then followed through with the elbow. It was just like a kind of childish play, I guess, frustration. I get it. He can't be doing that though. I thought he should have been. Well, I think what happened to him was good. Like, he got a penalty on the play, got fined for it. Like, end of story. It's a kind of frustrated play. That's what happens in hockey, I guess.
I guess my main issue is I don't disagree. It's just that when you look at the league and what they're trying to accomplish, I get it. Okay, it's Connor McDavid. He is the attraction of the NHL, but this is not the look that you want. And if you want to really like send a message, this is not a message at all. Like for me, it's just like you have an opportunity here. Now, granted, it was on Jesperi Kotkaniemi, but regardless, let's throw this away here. If I compare the McKinnon thing to McDavid, like the McKinnon, like
it was way more funny. It was way funny.
Hilarious, like absolutely hilarious. Didn't even really hit him in the head, like so. Like it was just a good watch. But the context in which that Connor McDavid is obviously targeting Jesperi because he's frustrated. The fine is such a non-factor. Like that, the main thing that this showed me is that it's just, why even give him a fine? It's so pathetic.
That's the max fine though, right? Like per their union agreement or whatever. So
yeah, I know, man.
I get what you're saying, but yeah.
Like, it's just like, for me, like if you're saying like you don't want headshots and then after that your superstar goes out and does not the most egregious headshot, and he comes out with the fact that he's getting a $5,000 fine for a guy that has a $12.5 million contract. Like, to me, that's not sending any type of message that's of substance to this league. So that's my only problem with it. I don't really care that he got no suspension. It's just it sucks that it turns out to be this way. That's my only thing.
I would totally agree with you if he had gone out and like headhunted for a player. I don't think this was really like he wasn't trying to injure someone. It wasn't like a hit like we saw like on Kotkaniemi by Dylan Dubé on Calgary, or like Armia, if they hit on Armia. Like, it's not a blatant hit to the head. It's kind of a follow through. He goes and raises the elbow. So I wouldn't really say that it's like something that the NHL wants to like completely take out of the game, that it's like the most egregious thing. I think it was just kind of a frustrated play. It's something you see in hockey all the time with like a big cross check or something like that. That's like, it's outside of the play. It's something just done out of frustration. This is kind of on the big stage because it's Connor McDavid. But if this was like, I don't know, I can't even think of a player that is
Tom
like
Wilson.
Teddy Blue.
Well, that's a bit on the other side of the spectrum, but like if it was like Zach Hyman doing that, we'd just be like, all right, well, here's a penalty.
You shouldn't have gone there, man. if any Leafs fans listen to this, we're done. It's over.
Yeah. Zach Hyman is supposed to be slated for the Team Canada roster. Did you guys see that on Twitter?
Yeah,
I mean, Team Toronto.
Yeah, I later realized that it was just a Photoshop, so I'm happy that that's the case, because that would have been fucking hilarious. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's just that at the end of the day, you're talking about headshot. That's the main difference. Is that if it's a cross check, it's a cross check. And
yeah, but I just wouldn't classify this as really like a headshot. Like, it's not like,
but he hit the head.
Okay, but it's, I don't know. Like, it wasn't really an elbow. Like, an elbow is like you go and you elbow him. This was like he hit him and he hit him with an elbow after. Like, it's like a punch, basically. Like, it's like we hit him and punched him.
Okay.
But anyway.
Fair enough. I just, yeah. I again, it happened to our baby boy, Jesperi Kotkaniemi. So
yeah. I was
when
pissed.
that happens,
I was pissed at the time, for sure.
Yeah, no, but I can live with it. It just, I think it's more of a message. It's more the macro level kind of way of how the Department of Safety has handled things that, again, for me, it's just there's no consistency in this league. So that's mainly the problem that I have with this whole situation. So, but yeah, just moving on. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on that specific incident.
Nope.
I'll take that as a no. Great.
This just made me realize that McKinnon is the best player in the world. Because just
I actually loved it. It was hilarious. All right, moving on. We'll take a look at TSN's Hockey's trade bait list. So, trade watch before the deadline. Who was at the top of the list last time we spoke, and that we made a segment on, which we didn't really answer anything specific on? It was Matthias Ekholm.
It was Ekholm, right?
Yeah, correct. So he has dropped 6th on the list, and number 1 is Monsieur David Savard on Columbus Blue Jackets, and right behind him is Kyle Palmieri from the New Jersey Devils. So I'm going to name out all of the other players. I'll give you at least the top 10. Kyle Palmieri, Taylor Hall from the Buffalo Sabres, the Nick Foligno, and then Jonathan Bernier. I just said Matthias Ekholm at 6. Mikael Granlund from Nashville, Toronto's top prospect, because that indicates that they are a obvious buyer. Luke Glendening from the Detroit Red Wings, and Alex Goligoski. So
who's Toronto's
I don't know if
top
there's
prospect?
any. They just wrote top prospect.
Yeah, it literally says Toronto's top prospect.
Yeah, exactly. So other noticeable mention or honorable mentions at 12, Chicago's cap space, and also I like this one, Ricard Raquel from the Anaheim Ducks, which is number 15. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any potential destinations, any teams that you guys think are going to do something big. Obviously, Toronto apparently is in the market. I just don't know how they're going to make any moves. The Montreal Canadiens could potentially go out and get a player, but they would have to make some moves, trading a Paul Byron, whatever it is. I don't necessarily see a fit for any of the top guys on this list. So I don't know if you guys do.
I think Toronto's going to try and make a play for Taylor Hall. Somehow.
How?
Somehow.
Well, I think the Sabres can retain salary.
Yeah. And like the cap hit isn't $8 million anymore. It's prorated, so it's somewhere around like half of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I mean, it's doable. $4 million, like you bury a contract, you retain some salary back in Buffalo, and they will obviously, what's his name? Kyle Dubas wants to make a big splash. And who else is there other than, I mean, if they go for Matthias Ekholm, potentially that's something else. But now Nashville's in a playoff spot. Like, do they really want to get rid of him? I don't know. And for the Habs, like, I don't think the Habs are going to make a play for any of the top guys here. The only guy would be Ekholm for me. And I don't think Nashville is going to get rid of him since they're like potentially in a playoff spot. And I think the price is too high for the Habs at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're looking more within, and they're seeing that like we have these solid defensemen. We just need them to like produce and be able to play hockey. So yeah, I don't necessarily think the Habs are going to go for any of these top guys. They'd probably add depth on defense, maybe. Looking into the future and maybe like injuries to our older defensemen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no one crazy, I don't think, for the Habs.
Yeah, I
Alex,
agree. I agree. I don't see Montreal doing much. Realistically, I don't see there being much movement around the league as a whole. I know Kyle Palmieri was scratched today. They said for, what was the reasoning? But anyway, because he's being traded, like precautionary.
Oh, yeah.
So he's going to be moved in the next couple of days. Like Justin said, I could see Toronto doing something. I think it is feasible with a lot of these guys on one-year deals. If you retain 50% of the salary, I wouldn't be surprised to see them try something. Taylor Hall might actually be realistic. But overall, yeah, I don't know. I think the league as a whole will be pretty quiet, especially with what's going on COVID-wise and stuff. I think it'll be fairly slow, disappointing for James Duthie and the team.
Correct. Well, I mean, we'll see. I think that that one part of this is, it's hard to project myself in this because there's a lot of cap restrictions this time around that makes it difficult, and kind of leading into what would be considered a really electric time in other years for the NHL. And again, because of COVID, might not be the case. But there was some talk of potentially Marc Bergevin. I don't know how legitimate this is, but some talk that he targets Vince Dunn from the St. Louis Blues. From what I gather, this is obviously an RFA that he would be able to kind of control as an asset by the end of the year. And a part of that package could be a Victor Mete going the other way. And obviously, I think you would have to add in terms of that package, which, to be honest, as a move, I don't see, if it can play out and the cost isn't too ridiculous. But from what I gather is, and I could be wrong here, so anybody that wants to roast me, go ahead, but it hasn't necessarily worked out as planned with Vince Dunn in St. Louis. So a good quick swap for Victor Mete. From also what I've read on Twitter, I can't remember the exact person that said, I think it was Mark D'Amico on Twitter that was saying that Marco D'Amico, sorry. So apologies. I think he was saying that that Victor Mete's favorite team is the St. Louis Blues. So I don't know if that plays into a factor. I'd hate to see him. Yeah, he is pretty much, but he's a fra as well. So that's a big time bonus for me. But that would be interesting. Vince Dunn, I've seen flashes of this player that could be really a good add to the depth of this D line. A more kind of NHL ready guy, kind of a la Victor Mete. I don't know what the cost would be, but that would be interesting. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, if it could be kind of a trade like Victor Mete and a middling pick, I would go for that for sure. We'd have to obviously make some room on the cap. I think Vince Dunn is 1.875 if I have my numbers correct.
That is correct.
So we'd have to make some space there. Maybe we'd be sending over a Paul Byron, but I think that would help us out more than it would St. Louis, just kind of dumping the cap. So I don't know. We would have to make some room somehow for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'd be open to it. I don't know much about Vince Dunn. Really.
I think
he seems like a promising guy.
Yeah, it's a pretty enticing deal if you can do it. I mean, Vince Dunn, I think a few years ago had 30 points or something. Like, he showed flashes of some not high-end offensive talent, but some good offensive talent. I think it's St. Louis's playoff run, he played fairly well there. And St. Louis just signed Torrey Krug this year, right? So that kind of pushed him down the depth chart, at least offensively, because I think he was part of their first power play unit, Vince Dunn, at least when he was having more success a couple of years ago. So if you can kind of revitalize that, whereas a guy like Mete, who doesn't seem like he'll be reaching his offensive potential here, Kulak, who's probably taken a bit of a step back since last year, since 2 years ago. If you can slot a guy like this on your second pairing who can help out the defense, at least on the offensive side, why not try it if you can do it for cheap?
Yeah, well, to be seen. Again, I always, like, Mark Bergevin always says, expect the unexpected. That's what you have to do for trade deadline days. So,
what about? Okay, I have another little wild card. I see at number 21, Mark Stahl.
What
about
Mark Stahl?
Reuniting the Stahl brothers?
No, thank you.
No,
for a $5.7 million cap hit.
I'd rather Jared at this stage. Fuck.
Is he a defenseman? A defenseman?
I have no idea. He's playing. We have to ask our Écossais Canadien to figure that one out for us, because I can't remember what position he plays, because he's all the way in the what's the EIHF. That's
I
it.
actually realized that he retired in 2016 from the EIHL. So, yeah.
Fuck. All right. Well, we'll hire him as a consultant to speak with his brother. Okay, so a couple of other news items. I think it is on the more. I want to start off with more serious news. Is that the Vancouver Canucks have been hit with a couple of cases of COVID, if I'm not mistaken, confirmed cases. Yeah,
20 now.
The list was Yeah, exactly. It started off with like I think Gaudette was a part of the list. Antoine Roussel. I'm trying to find the exact tweet with all of this information, but hoping, of course, for the best for these players and, of course, everyone surrounding the team, that this doesn't, affect them. But apparently, it has from a more serious kind of medical state. Is that they've been, heavily kind of ill with COVID. So no joke for the team and the organization, and hopefully it gets resolved and everybody gets healthy soon. Games have been delayed, so one thing that we wanted to mention as part of the show, because it's quite significant news for not only the Vancouver Canucks, but how this can be managed for the rest of the league, and if this is going to affect anything else. So hopefully that's not the case, and everybody gets healthy. So just wanted to give the thoughts out on that.
I even heard about. I mean, Elliot Friedman was talking about them even not finishing their season potentially because of this, and it's crazy to think. Like, I mean, Vancouver's not in the best spot in the standings right now, but like if this happened to like Toronto or even Montreal, like the last week when we had our scare with COVID, like if it happened where 20 people on the staff had COVID, like these guys are in a playoff spot. Like, what happens? Like, you can't just. I mean, I wouldn't think that they just like stop playing or stop the season,
Well, it's unprecedented, right? So yeah, I don't know how they manage that shit.
It's crazy.
Like, apparently this is the worst outbreak. Sorry, I was just gonna say this is like the worst outbreak in the NHL this year. Like even the American teams like Dallas, like Buffalo, and a few others that had these outbreaks weren't as widespread as this one was.
Yeah, like you touched on, Maki, like I hope everyone's healthy and stuff. And if you think about it, best case, they're starting skating again in 2 weeks. So they're not playing for 3, let's say. And that's best case, which from the news we're getting is it's not looking likely. So again, yeah, I hope everyone recovers fully. I hope their families aren't affected and stuff, but it's not looking fantastic at this time.
And just an extra thing to add, even like even worse for them is that their farm team in Utica just got over like a COVID outbreak in their locker room. So even looking to their staff like to kind of fill in the roles is going to be a bit dicey. So it's brutal. It's not looking good. Hoping for the best for them, and hopefully they're all going to be healthy soon. And they're what a fucked up world we live in right now. And again, if you guys are dealing with all that stuff, we're wishing you the best from the No Respek fam. So this unfortunately is the reality of for everyone, including the NHL. So hopefully it doesn't affect anybody else. And again, all the best to the players that are affected right now, and everyone else. So moving on to maybe some lighter news, and this one is going to be a shout out to our Flyers correspondent Anthony. But Shane Gostisbehere, now you can officially call him Gostis benched. Put on waivers, a player that is removed from a couple of seasons ago, where I think he had 63 points or some shit like that, and we were talking about, I'm not gonna lie, I was foaming at the mouth for the potential of Shane Gostisbehere potentially joining the Montreal Canadiens, playing alongside, potentially a Shea Weber on that power play, because he was a player that was electric on a good contract from what it seemed. But man, what a drop off. I don't have that much more to say on Shane Gostisbehere, but I don't know if you guys wanted to add to this specific news. Well, there was a lot of talk about people potentially picking him up. Yeah, sorry. Like you said, he had 65 points in 2017, 2018. Looked like he was going to be the next Erik Karlsson stud on the power play, but I don't know what's been happening. But the last couple seasons, he just hasn't. He's put up 12 points in 42 games, and this season 11 points in 26 games. Doesn't seem like he's the same player as he was, and I'm not sure why. I think it's the Philly effect.
Might be.
Too much Philadelphia cream cheese, maybe, in his diet.
Fuck. Alex?
No, but definitely part of it in Philly, he definitely took a back seat, I guess, to Ivan Provorov when it comes to power play time and stuff like that. And I'm sure his bad play contributed to that. But I could see him as a guy who gets a second chance somewhere and starts contributing again. Obviously, he's a guy who you'll have to pair with someone who's more solid defensively, but he's shown he has the offensive talent. I don't think that just disappears like that. So if you let him build some confidence, give him some opportunity, I could see him doing well somewhere.
Yeah, I doubt that you can put up 65 points as a defenseman and that just goes away.
Exactly.
Just like you said, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I know that, there's players that regress, but 65 points, it's hard to believe that can be a fluke, especially on defense. So, honestly, I don't know where that contract in a flat cap era is going to go. That's the main thing, because if we're looking at this player in a normal context where the cap is moving upwards, I don't think this is even a question that this guy gets picked up and gets given a chance. The only reason is that, first of all, there's the quarantine. That's a factor, which it used to be 14 days, went down to 7. One of the reasons why Eric Stahl, when he was talking about the Montreal Canadiens, said that he waived his no move clause because it went from 14 to 7, and 7 was much more manageable. So that's one factor for Shane Gostisbehere. And the next one is obviously the fact that people just can't afford him right now. So it's the competitors, right?
What is his contract? Do you know?
It's 4.25 or some shit like that. 4.3?
Yeah, 4.5.
4.5. There you go. So they signed it right after, or I think right before the 65-point season where he was on the up and up. So it looked like a steal. And we were all saying it was. Now, not so much. So, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting development to see and how that goes through. So without further ado, we're going to have the last two segments, starting off with a Would You Rather. No trivia this week. with Justin, and then finish off today's episode with the upcoming schedule for those beautiful Montreal Canadiens. A huge thank you for listening all the way through if you have. Moving on to Would You Rather with Justin. Please.
All right, great. So welcome to Would You Rather. I'll reveal the players now. We're going with an older segment here. Jason Spezza and Eric Staal. Both centers. Jason Spezza is 37 years old, plays for the Caps right now. The Caps, what am I saying? The Maple Leafs right now. He never even played for the Caps. Eric Staal obviously plays for our Habs. And yeah, he's 36 years old, so very close in age. If you're just watching on screen right now, both in green in these pictures, which is not their current teams. But yeah, obviously the points, Eric Staal's points this season are a bit skewed since he was on the Buffalo Sabres. Sorry. So yeah, I don't know what you guys think about this. I don't know how much of Eric Staal or Jason Spezza you've watched recently, but I'd like to have your takes on him.
Can I just get a quick clarification before I roast Jason Spezza? How much are the contracts for each?
I think Spezza's on a minimum.
Eric, okay. Yeah, Spezza, I believe, is on, well, you're 700K, I guess.
Yeah, 750 maybe.
Sorry, I'm grabbing the numbers. 700K for Jason Spezza, and Eric Staal, we all know, is...
I like this. I like the Staal. Get it?
$1.625 million.
Oh my God, he's overpaid.
Okay. Alex, I'll let you go first.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. Like, I have to support Eric Staal now because he's coming to Montreal, but I hate both of these guys so much. Like, I think Eric Staal was a big part in ruining my childhood when Carolina eliminated Montreal there. So I've never liked Eric Staal, but I'll fully support him now. And Spezza, I mean, how can you not hate Jason Spezza? He also ruined my childhood with Ottawa. Who was it? Spezza, Alfredson, Marian Hossa. They were in my nightmares most weekends. Yeah, I mean...
Danny Heatley.
Oh, sure. Yeah, he's a fucking all-star. Yeah, I pick Eric Staal. I would rather Eric Staal. I think last year and the year prior, he was still a very, very good player, putting up at least second-line numbers. Spezza, while it's pretty impressive what he's doing this year, has definitely regressed quite a bit, but he is fulfilling his role on the Leafs' bottom six. But yeah, Eric Staal all day. I think he still has that capability to turn it up and be a productive forward. I think in the current time, Eric Staal can be a bigger contributor than Jason Spezza. I think he's going to be a huge, huge help to our young centers. I see Jason Spezza, like, he has those same qualities, I guess, but he's a bit more of a flashier player than Eric Staal, whereas I think Staal has more of the intangibles and just good leadership. So yeah, main factors, Staal is probably still better and will help our young team more.
Yeah, sorry to be redundant. I agree with Alex here. Now, I know a lot of Leaf fans are very happy with Jason Spezza, and they have every right to be because he's on a league minimum contract, kind of like like Corey Perry on our team. I would say maybe a little bit more productive in terms of points, if I'm not mistaken. I could even be wrong there, but there's that element that it's a veteran that still knows how to get some points and get on the board. So a player that has a lot of value at that contract, of course. But the big thing about Eric Staal is that he's removed from a couple of seasons ago where he like scored literally 40 goals. You know, I know that he's an older player now, but for double the salary approximately, you're getting the potential of a guy that can be significantly more impressive for your team. And again, bringing those intangibles as well. He's a winner. I'm not sure if Jason Spezza won a cup. I believe the answer is no, because he was with the Sens, then went to Dallas, and now he's with the Leafs. So he will never win a cup if he stays with the Leafs. But So, jokes aside, I'm saying that Eric Stahl for a group for the price. Still, I don't see this being really a competition. I could be wrong, and Eric Stahl might be closer to the sample size that he was in Buffalo. That could be very well a possibility. However, I go with my gut here and think that he's closer to the player that he was a couple of seasons ago. Not the one in the 40-goal season, but even looking last year, he was a factor for the Minnesota Wild. So I pick Eric Stahl as well. Justin, yourself.
Yeah, for me, if I were to pick these players at the beginning of their careers, I would say Jason Spezza, because I think, as Alex said, he is kind of a flashy player. He put up a lot of points in the beginning of his career. And you said he didn't win a cup. He actually made it to the cup final against our boy Corey Perry against Anaheim in 2006.
Oh shit, it's true, eh? Ottawa made the final. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So and in that playoff run, he actually had 22 points in 20 games. So he was quite a factor. But yeah, I right now I believe that Eric Stahl is the more effective player. Like you said, he scored 42 goals 3 years ago. And he's still putting up decent numbers, like at 50, 60 points a year, whereas Stahl is hovering around the 30
Spezza, you mean,
mark.
right?
Sorry. Yeah. Jason Spezza is around the 30-point mark. But yeah, I can't deny that Jason Spezza is having a great year in a different role with the Maple Leafs this year. But I think if Eric Stahl had started on a better team, he would have more points than Jason Spezza this year. So I'm going to go with Stahl, Cup winner, captain, and yeah, Montreal Canadian, lifer.
Now, the last thing that I'll say, and I'll throw a bone to any Leafs fans that are listening to this, is that Eric Stahl was in a position to be the go-to guy in Minnesota for quite some time, because that was a team that wasn't very good. Whereas Jason Spezza made the decision to kind of be that role player a little bit earlier on than Eric Stahl and try to go for a cup. So that's the only thing I'll say here that might mitigate that, and that could be skewing a little bit of the numbers of an Eric Stahl, because we had this conversation last time when it came to Brady Tkachuk and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. So I thought it's fair to bring up. So that's all I'm going to say. Fair enough? Good?
Fair enough. Yeah.
I just have a quick, maybe you just get your quick takes, like a sentence or two. But if I were to throw in Corey Perry into the mix with these guys, I know he's not a center, but where would you rate Corey Perry between these two? Yeah.
I would say the bottom of it, to be honest. Like, if I'm going to be really honest, I love what Corey Perry has done. And even then, Corey Perry is a bit of a surprise in what he's done this year. But it's impossible to say that I would have put them over Eric Stahl and Jason Spezza at the beginning of the year. And even now, I think that they're both... Eric Stahl playing with the Buffalo Sabres isn't close enough to be a valid sample size, because they just came off of that 19-game losing streak or whatever. And Jason Spezza is putting up numbers as well. So that's my take there.
18 games. Have some respect, please.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, I agree with Maki. Currently, or start of the year, I would have put him at the bottom as well. My only concern is maybe Eric Stahl is the reason Buffalo is losing so much, because I think they're on a 4-game point streak now, right? And now that he's in Montreal, and we just lost pretty big to Ottawa, so he started skating yesterday, right? And that's when we lost. So
oh shit!
So maybe this guy is the curse, and that's it. It's all downhill from here.
Bad omen.
Because Minnesota's flying too now, right? They're second in the division. So.
In a playoff spot.
Carolina too. Carolina.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
True. Fuck, hey. What did we do?
Even the Peterborough Petes.
All right, great.
All right. Well, thank you for Would You Rather. I'll pass it back to Mackie.
All right, here we go. We've got the final segment, which is the schedule for the Montreal Canadiens. We're at the 104 mark, so pretty good, guys. We said that it was going to be shorter. Still, we hover around the standard. So next week, Monday, which is tomorrow, as we record here Sunday night, against Edmonton. Wednesday, against Toronto, Thursday against Winnipeg, and Saturday against Winnipeg. So, as you said at the top of the show, pretty intense week of competition. We just lost against the Ottawa Senators. So what do we think? Alex, starting with you.
It's a tough one. Yeah, I think tougher matchups this week, so we're going to go 4-0.
Any explanation as to why we're going to roll all of these teams?
Well, Edmonton can't seem to match us. McDavid and Draisaitl will struggle again. Toronto, it's always a close game, but I think we'll finally get it. I'd like to see Matthews score a hat trick, though. Then Winnipeg, yeah, I mean, that's going to be tight games too, but we'll come out with the win. Allen's going to finally get a shutout. And Toffoli's going to hit 25 this week. So what's that, 6 more this week? Yeah.
Jesus. Good for him. Good for him. Yeah,
So
we forgot to mention that he came back, so yeah.
Is it dueling hat tricks for Matthews and Toffoli in that game?
No, it'll be different nights.
Okay.
Great.
All right, great. Great to know that you already know all of this. Justin, what about you? Are you as certain?
I think this is going to be a tough week. 4 playoff teams. The only other 3 playoff teams in the North Division. What is it? The Honda North? Mass Mutual North?
Is it Scotia? No.
Sorry, yeah, Scotia.
Yeah.
How could I mess that up?
Mass Mutual West or whatever the fuck it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Edmonton's going to come back mad, and Connor McDavid's going to have a good game against us. So I'm kind of scared about that one. I think we're going to lose against Edmonton. We're going to win against Toronto and then trade with Winnipeg. I think we're going to go 2-2, all in regulation this week.
Okay, fair enough. I say 3-0-1. Edmonton, forget it. Toronto, I think we get it as well. And then Winnipeg, one of the games is going to be a regulation win, and the other one is going to be an OT loss. So that's the way I see things. I don't know why.
Okay, sorry.
What did you
regulation
say?
Win and overtime loss, you said?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
So the I have a feeling that the OT problems are going to resurface for whatever reason, unfortunately. But yeah, still an overall good week for the Montreal Canadiens if that happens. For Alex, it's already 4-0, so that's fantastic. And what might happen is we go 0-4. So hopefully that's not the fucking case. But yeah, guys, that's it for today's show. Once again, a huge thank you for listening all the way through. You can, again, if you're enjoying the content, this is all up to you, but a like, a subscribe, a follow, a comment really means a lot and goes a long way for us. So a huge thank you to everyone that we've been interacting with. We've mentioned a few names. I'm going to name a couple of others. We've got Gibbs that always likes our tweets. God bless you. Tonsils, Pelter, 84. That's Adam Pelter. We've got also Huey. We've got, who else am I forgetting? I'm forgetting so many people. Arnika Sikanadzane, we already mentioned him. We've got Quichi from Germany. Oh my God. Fantastic. And I'll leave it at that for now, but a huge thank you. We've seen a couple of new subscribers. We mentioned them at the top of the show, some new commenters on YouTube. So thank you very much. You can reach us at No Respek Podcast on Twitter. That's, you take out the C, you take out the T, and you throw in the K. You got our individual handles, Alex_No Respek, Justin_No Respek, myself, Mackie, MACKY_No Respek. And you can find us on all of those great platforms, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all of that good shit. So a huge thank you. Yeah, that's it from me. Any last thoughts on the Montreal Canadiens, guys?
Big week. Let's get it.
Like it. Alex, White Claw. White Claw shout out.
I think Justin summed it up.
Great. Well, on behalf of myself, Alex, and Justin, we always remind you to respect the
Orgasm Nation.
Have a great one. Go Habs, go. Et merci à les partisans des Canadiens. Et le but! Terrible.